All right, so let's go ahead and get into some climate news here on grandsolarminimum.com. Taking this article here from What's Up With That. British MP demands an end to affordable food to combat obesity and climate change. Dr. Willie Soon, according to the British MP Michael Gove, cheap food damages the environment and encourages poor people to overeat. Okay. True cost of but actually, before I even start, all right. Last time I talked about obesity, there was a lot of people in the comment section that were pretty harsh. And, again, I don't understand all the judgment. Not everybody's perfect. But I feel like that this story is covering up. It would be easier to say we're having a food shortage than someone coming out and just straight up saying, cheap food damages the environment, encourages poor people to overeat. I know some people who have a lot of money that eat a lot of food. Lots of it. And they're rich. It's because they have the money. To say that poor people overeat makes it sound like, it's almost kind of classifying people here, like segregating here. Anyway, radical change needed to make UK food and farming systems sustainable within 10 years. The true cost of cheap, unhealthy food is spiraling public health and crisis and environmental destruction. Hey, listen. So I'll agree with this to a point, that it is more expensive to eat healthier foods. You go to your supermarket and you want the good stuff, you want to take care of your body, it is a little bit more expensive. So is it the consumer's fault that the stuff they really need to eat is almost out of their budget when you look at some of the food costs today? I'm not trying to make an excuse for people, but at the same time, I get it. Not everybody can afford to eat and shop on a budget that demands a little bit healthier foods. And unfortunately, there's a lot of comfort food out there that's just more convenient and cheaper to buy. We all know that. So I see both sides, but I'm still more sympathetic to the cost of trying to eat healthy all the time. And I know some of you will probably give me a lashing, like go out and grow your own garden. It won't be that expensive. You're right. Absolutely, absolutely right. But some people aren't capable or able to grow their own food at this point. We still have a lot of issues with a lot of people are still underwater. Lots of floods. So, but you guys can check this article out. I just wanted to share it because it's from a part of the world where they're already trying to. I was reading here. What else was it? This, yeah. They wanted to also. This is another area that's going to look to. The word ecological transformation of our food and farming system we urgently need. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Only because we are being encouraged to eat foods that are healthier for us, which means foods that are grown in fields for more than likely, fresh produce. So let's steer away from the cheap processed foods. Let's get rid of it, ban them, and make people force them to eat this fresh produce that you grow in the fields. The only problem with that is that we're starting to see shortages right now across the world, especially here in the United States. And who would have thought? People say, "Well, it's just peas." No, it's crazy to me that any grocery store in the United States is having a shortage on peas, green beans, and potatoes. Flour is on the list now. That's crazy to me that those four things are in shortage. And this is just the beginning. And we're hearing this because of last year's supply not being enough to meet the demand. So when you have a country that wants to get rid of the cheap foods and unhealthy foods and maybe tax these healthy foods like they do the carbon tax, but tax you now if you want a chocolate-covered granola bar. They could scroll it when the show's over, Mari, and read it.
People are asking in the chat to scroll up, please.
I was in the middle of thought. Sorry.
Sorry.
Totally derailed me. Thank you.
Sorry. You're welcome.
No, but think about it. They want to make the cheap foods less accessible, and they want everyone to eat more produce, more fresh veggies, stuff like that. But that supply is running low right now. And who knows what next year's supply is going to look like. If last year's crop wasn't good enough to meet this year's demand, what is next year's crop? How are they even going to come close? I'll have to keep looking. Germany risked running out of power. You don't say. And I'm being sarcastic about this because these guys were the biggest ones on taking on the green energy and all that good stuff. But it says here, Germany, a poster child for renewable energy, is renouncing nuclear and coal. The problem is, say many power producers and grid operators, it may struggle to keep the lights on. That's what we say here too as well. The country, the biggest electricity market in the European Union, is abandoning nuclear power by 2022 due to safety concerns compounded by the Fukushima disaster and phasing out our coal plants over the next 19 years to combat climate change. In the next 3 years alone, conventional energy capacity is expected to fall by a fifth, leaving it short of the country's power or peak power demand. There's a disagreement over whether there will be sufficient reliable capacity to preclude the possibility of outages, which could hammer the operations of industrial companies. The Berlin government, in a report issued this month, said the situation was secure and shortfalls could be offset by better energy efficiency, a steadily rising supply of solar and wind, as well as electricity imports. Regardless of reliability, however, Germany becoming a net power importer would have a major consequences for the whole continent, whose power markets are intended or interlinked under EU single market rules and are dominated by exports from Germany. The shift comes at a time when nuclear plants in France and other major exporter to the rest of Europe are aging fast, meaning it is also increasingly likely to rely on imports. So, again, more proof coming out, and this is something that we've been talking about for a while, about wind and solar not being enough. Another part of this world, another country that wants to ban coal in 19 years. So this is what I think about when I see numbers like that, when people put a timeline on when they're going to ban coal. And I always think about how AOC claims that we have 12 years to get our CO2 emissions under control, or we're going to see the end of the world. People are going to die. And then I see where countries like this want to ban coal in 19 years. Well, I thought we only had 12 years. Other parts of the United States that are issuing these new laws, like New York, where they want to ban coal and natural gas within the next couple of decades. Again, exceeding that 12-year timeline that AOC is scaring everybody with. So, to me, the Green New Deal is a last-minute cash grab. I've repeated myself over and over about this. This 12-year scare is nothing but to get people on board with it so they can get the money as fast as possible. She's the only one saying 12 years. Everybody else is saying in 20 years and 30 years, we're going to ban natural gas, we're going to ban coal. We're going to ban all these CO2 emissions in 30 years. I mean, I'm confused. These guys really need to get their story together and stay with one story. Because there's too many people out there that don't have their facts lined up. And again, I don't think a lot of these people even understand what's happening to our climate, or even the science of what's happening to our climate. Crop bulletin report, guys. So I wanted to read this, and I was going through this report, and I was seeing like some of the crops are being rated as good right now, very good, and I don't know about that, guys. I've got pictures, and I meant to have them loaded up tonight, but I've got pictures of corn stalks being sold, or ears of corn. You have to shuck them, 3 for $1. And I mean, goodness gracious, I've seen Snickers bars that are bigger than some of these ears of corn. But I want to show you guys the percentage of very poor, fair, good, and excellent crops. First of all, let's go to the excellent. Nobody's killing it right now. Nobody has excellent looking crops. Period. Soybean, by the way. What's scary is that last year we had between 76 and 82% of the crops that were in good or excellent condition. This year, if you had to combine the good and the excellent percentages for Arkansas, it only amounts to 56%. Illinois, the good and the excellent only amounts to around 41%. Ohio, 33%. Tennessee, not too bad, around 77% in the good to excellent condition. So, looks like we have maybe half, 50% in good. Most of them, I'd say the average is probably about 40% in the good, 9% in the excellent percentage, and then there's a wide range of fair, 32, 37, 40, 30%, 43% in Kansas is fair. Nebraska, 24% of your crops right now are fair. 63% are rated good. That's a pretty strong number compared to everyone else out here. 8% rated excellent. This is soybean numbers, guys. Just soybean. The lowest one is Ohio right now, which is kind of surprising because they usually do pretty good when it comes to soybean. Corn. Again, the majority of the corn is in the good rated area and fair. Actually, the percentage in the fair is a little bit higher, I think, overall average. We see a lot more 40, 20, 30% fair. Good, same thing, 30, 40, 50% good. And then a couple of 60s, 63, 67, 65, and 61% in Pennsylvania is rated good. 67 in North Dakota is rated good. Nebraska, your corn, 63% of it's rated good. Top that with your 13% of excellent rated crop. You're looking at a total of 76%. So Nebraska, parts of Nebraska are having a decent turnout so far as the season is continuing to grow. But look at Ohio. There are 33% in the good and the excellent. And tonight for the corn is 38%. 35% rated good, 3% rated excellent. 38% of the corn crop is rated good or excellent. 33% of the soybean crop is rated good or an excellent. Both crops are in the 30s with the good, and then the very low 3% in excellent rated crops. So I'm hoping that we make up for it in places like Tennessee, some parts of Texas. Who else is looking decent? Pennsylvania's okay. North Dakota, Nebraska, Kentucky even. I don't know. We'll see what happens next week because they got a lot of rain. So we might have some crop issues out there as well. Kansas, it's getting better. Iowa, 62% good and excellent. It's getting closer. But here we are in the second week of July, guys. And these are numbers that we probably see in late June. So very concerned about the percentage of crops, how they're looking. Also, winter wheat harvested. Right now in Arkansas, 100% has been cut. That's awesome. Last year it was 100% by now, so those guys are right on target. Different story though in Nebraska. Last year this time they were at 57% harvested. Now I spoke to Matt, and I know he was just getting to cut his winter wheat on Tuesday of this week. So these numbers reflect true in my opinion. Right now in Nebraska, only 14% of the wheat, the winter wheat, has been harvested. That's an improvement from last week, only 2%. But the 5-year average at this point of the year is 52%. So they're a little behind as well. But at least progress is being made. North Carolina is in great shape. 93% of your wheat has been harvested. The winter wheat, that is. Just a little bit under where they were last year, which was 98%. Ohio, 64% of your wheat has been harvested. 84% last year, so you're down 20%. Oklahoma, you're only down 2% from last year. Oregon, 4% of your winter wheat has been harvested, but last year at this time only 16%. So that's, give you a contrast, it's 4 times worse this year. South Dakota, nothing. Haven't harvested anything. The 5-year average at this point is 21%. And they are at a 0. Previous year is 17%, which reflects of things getting a little bit worse each year. Texas, awesome shape. Winter wheat, 97%. You're actually over last year's percentage at this time, which was 94%. So Texas, Oklahoma, some parts of Nebraska, Missouri, and Arkansas, all in good, California, all are in good shape with your winter wheat harvest. 5 states. 1, 2, 3, 5 states. Got some work to do out there, guys. And let's hope that we continue to get dry and hot weather. And, that's the thing that is also concerning me in the upcoming future. But here comes the hottest claims ever. Here they come. We have a heat wave now. Here's the thing. We do have a heat wave in Europe, and we have one here in the U.S. starting too. But Mashable reported that June was the warmest June ever on record. This is a classic example of hysterical climate propaganda. First of all, I'm grateful for the articles such as this, for it provides an opportunity to showcase the other side of the argument. One is never going to convince an agenda-driven zealots bent on destroying anyone their way of one's point. However, for those curious enough to look, you may be able to see why there is skepticism over the issue of CO2 not being the climate control knob. It looks like this article, it talks about the anomaly maps, and this is my favorite right here, where people freak out about the warmth and where it is right now. There's no increase in summer temps. It's all in the winter, where the WV leads to more clouds and snow with higher temperatures. You can see the lion's share of warming is because winter warmth. If you just look at the facts, the blue line winter, the red is summer, black overall, obviously distorted because the winter warmth. So even with warming in the winter, it's still frigid in the winter. And this is what we talked about too. With just because it's 20 degrees above normal in the Arctic doesn't mean it's 45 degrees outside. It's a lot colder up there in the wintertime. So when it's 20 degrees above normal in the wintertime, it's very possible it's still likely below 0. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys finish this one off. There's some things in here that I'm not quite sure. I don't want to phrase it wrong. So I've seen this before. This chart here where they're showing us the plateaus where they believe that we're in another plateau right now of warming before we hit cooling. We'll continue to monitor that. But this is available on our website, thegrandsolarminimum.com. And I do believe, yep. So guys, sit tight. I'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.